So I had an inspection today for a buyer and we got to talking and it prompted me to make this video. I need you to know that I used to be a mortgage loan officer. I used to be a branch manager for a large mortgage company. I am rusty in the world of mortgages, but I'm married to a mortgage loan officer who I met when I worked in the mortgage industry, and he will bless this video before I post it because in my making this video, I'm not staying in my lane as a realtor. But there are some things I want pretty much anyone to know. This will not be my shortest video, but hopefully you'll find it very, very informative, especially if you're on the market for a house or a mortgage. Okay, so we were at an inspection today and the inspector pointed out some things that my buyer would like to address. And there are two ways to do that. Yeah, two ways to do that. You either ask the seller to fix it or you ask for money in lieu of repairs. When you ask the seller to fix it, the seller gets to fix it with the seller's repair person, with the seller's choices for the repair. Like if you need a new oven, they pick the oven and they pick who installs the oven. Or if it's a cosmetic item, they pick the painter or the person who's doing the caulking, and it's done to the seller's liking, not yours. That leaves room for just, a discrepancy. To prevent that, then you ask for money in lieu of repairs. That can happen two ways. The first way, and it's the easiest one to explain, is you get money off the purchase price of the home. So let's say you need $5,000 for this to make sense for you to buy the home with whatever needs fixing. And the house is $400 grand. Simple. You just ask them to sell it to you for $395. That will not impact your mortgage very much. The difference in your mortgage payment will be minute, but you will knock $5,000 off of your purchase price. If you want to make more of an impact on your pocketbook, then you ask for seller concessions. Let me try and explain seller concessions. Seller concessions, simply put, are the seller paying for the buyer's closing costs. What are closing costs? Closing costs vary from lender to lender and person to person. So not all lenders are created equal, just like all realtors aren't created equal. Some lenders have higher fees for doing business with them. But one thing that is standard across the board and is not controllable is your prepaid items. And your prepaid items are insurance and property taxes. Okay, those are not negotiable. Those are what you gotta pay. And you gotta pay those out of pocket at closing. So when you go to the closing table, you bring two parts of monies. You bring closing cost and your down payment. Your down payment is going to be a percentage of the purchase price or whatever number you want it to be, but it has to at least meet a percentage that you and your loan officer determine you need. 3.5%, 5%, 10%, 20%. That's your down payment. Then you got to bring your closing costs. And that's where you can ask for seller concessions to pay for that. So what happens is the seller sells their home and they get money for making that sale. They get their equity in cash. Well, they're going to take whatever a dollar amount you agreed on in lieu of repairs and take that from their equity and pay it on your closing costs. Therefore, you're not bringing that down payment plus the closing cost, and you get to keep that money in your pocket, which then gives you the money to make those repairs. Does that make sense? So your payment stays the same as you were originally quoted on your $400,000 purchase price. The purchase price is not changing, just the amount you bring to closing changes. Now, that brings me to something I did not anticipate to talk about, but Mark brought up a very good point, and he had this come up today. If you're going to use Mark for a loan, he is always going to tell you to shop him around, but he needs you to be prepared for a few things from lender to lender. You want to compare apples to apples. Insurance has gotten very expensive, and some lenders are putting in a lower insurance amount and higher fees. So there are loan origination points, which are a fee for doing business with that lender. Mark does not have loan origination points. And then there are discount points, and that's where you're prepaying the interest for the loan. You got to be careful with that. You can waste a whole lot of money on discount points. So be careful when you're getting discount points, and be sure your lender can explain to you your break-even point on that. Okay, it's usually many, many years to break even on prepaying interest. It's not always the best idea to prepay interest, especially when interest rates are as volatile as they are, and chances are you're gonna refinance before you break even to save money. Okay, that I just kind of squirrel. Okay, so insurance on a $400,000 house depends on how old the house is as to how much it can be. Mark's an insurance salesperson as well. He's going to use an actual insurance amount, not some lowball number. So when you look at Mark's loan estimate, that's a breakdown of the whole innards of the loan, you're going to see a much closer to actual annual insurance premium than you might on other lenders. So the cash to close might be the same between Mark and another lender, but what you're not catching is that the insurance over here is really low and the fees are high. The insurance for Mark is legit and the fees are low. So they look like the same bottom line, like the cash to close is similar. But what's gonna happen if you go with this guy who charged higher fees and lower insurance, he's gonna say, okay, give me your insurance. Oh, look, it was $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 more than I thought it might be. So now your cash to close just went up by whatever the difference was. Same with taxes. So taxes, I know I'm getting into a lot of information here, but once you have a contract and a house picked, title gets involved and orders what's called a tax certificate, and that shows exactly how much the taxes are and what's due. A loan officer is doing a pretty good guesstimation of it, but they can still lowball taxes and increase fees. So when you go to compare cash to close on low taxes, high fees compared to cash to close on accurate taxes, low fees, your cash to close is the same. Does that make sense? Also, when it comes to using Mark versus other lenders, Mark is going to not charge a discount point because unless you have to have a discount point to qualify, he's against prepaying interest because you can do a free refinance later when the rates go down and you didn't prepay your equity towards interest, because people don't want to pay more interest than they have to in general. So you'll see that the rate over here might be equal to the rate over here. But remember how I told you the fees were different? Well, the fees over here might be more because you're prepaying the interest to get the same rate Mark is getting without it. Now, I just went over a whole lot of information and kind of jutted all over the place. And like I said, Mark will bless this before I post it. But bottom line is, Mark and I want to help you make sense of whatever you've got going on. So if you ever need help with a mortgage or buying or selling, just call us and we're happy to take care of whatever it is for you and compare apples to apples and explain the things that you might not see if you're not in the industry to look for it. Thank you for watching, and I hope I didn't bore you too much.